Global warming raises problems in relation to carbon and carbon sequestration, and farming can contribute to that. So there are a variety of ways in which farming can help, and if farmers were paid to do those things, then society would feel that that was justified.
So, do wind turbines have a role in all this?
Wind turbines are an interesting issue, but I think they're a red herring as far as saving the planet from global warming. You know, you just need to look at the quantity of electricity that somebody like Anglesey Aluminium consumes, or Shotton consumes on these. Shotton consumes more electricity than the whole of the city of Manchester. If we covered all of Mid and North Wales in wind turbines, we probably couldn't supply their needs. It's too intermittent. You know, it's a short-term palliative. But I'm afraid, you know, we've got to reduce the human population numbers and find, if we want to carry on using this quantity of energy, wind turbines, I'm afraid, are not going to solve the problem of global warming.
They don't produce very much energy, and they only produce it when the wind is blowing. And because they only produce it when the wind is blowing, you need to have backup energy to come in at those times when the wind isn't blowing, so you don't actually save very much. It's very unfortunate that the newspapers, whenever they want to illustrate renewable energy, always show a picture of a wind turbine, which is the least satisfactory form of renewable energy that there is. There are other forms. Both wind turbines and motorised vehicles will drive away those people who currently enjoy the area. So the gross benefits from having those two things are actually need to be reduced by the fact that other people would have come here will change their minds.
Dafydd Morris Jones and his mother farm a particularly beautiful and historically important part of the northern Cambrian Mountains. Just beyond their land is the mountain Plynlimmon, and in the valley beyond that, the site of a battle. This is where, legend tells us, Owain Glyndwr's army defeated the forces of England, and so lit a lamp for Welsh consciousness and Welsh independence that has never been put out. Only the farmers who used to work and live here with their families until the 1920s have been forced to retreat to a less unforgiving landscape. But today, Dafydd Morris Jones proposes to survive.
I'm now the fifth generation here. We were tenant farmers, renting the land off the estate. The local estate was the Hafod estate. And then after the Second World War, my grandfather managed to buy the farm, and then that passed on to my mother, and now it's passed on to me, which I run with my mother. So it's a proper family concern. I think at the time that my grandfather bought it, it was quite a large farm, but by modern standards, obviously, even though the farm's not shrinking, it's no longer classed as a large farm, and as such, you tend to start thinking about the future and whether it's viable or not, and what direction agriculture is going to take.
And what conclusions have you reached as you think about these things?
Well, I tend to think agriculture on the whole is having a bit of a depression at the moment, which I don't see lasting too long, hopefully. But the face of agriculture will change quite considerably by the time it comes back around. I can see far more need for diversified enterprises, or just being an absolutely massive farm, being very large, which isn't possible for every farmer to be able to do. And it'll certainly change the cultural landscape around here if that were to happen. If you have large ranch-style farming, you're not going to have the small Welsh-speaking family farms that you used to have. You're not going to have the countryside culture in which people interact in the way they do, because you're not going to have as many people living in the mountains. And you're just going to get nucleated commuter villages, and you're going to get very, very large farms. That's what I hope won't happen. What I hope will happen, there's massive scope for development of tourism in this area. There's Plynlimmon just over the hill that way. We've got a mountain biking centre at Nanterarian. We've got the Forestry Commission who've opened up their land, and we've got masses of open access land as well. And I think with the natural beauty that we have here, there's a real opportunity to be able to develop tourism on as small or as large a scale as you want, which can benefit small farms in, from just having a very simple campsite and having nothing else to do with the tourism industry, right through to being able to create activities, lead them, or have any sort of tourism venture running that you can possibly scale yourself.
This is Cefn Croes, just over the hill from the Morris Jones farm. It's one of the most recent and one of the most controversial wind turbine schemes in Wales. It was pushed through in the teeth of legal challenge and fierce local and national opposition. It is not just the turbines themselves that cause dismay. Approach roads with the dimensions of a motorway have to be scoured out of the hill so that the colossal masts can be trucked up the mountain.
I think the actual building of them did a lot of damage to the environment in that area, and if you were a farmer who was farming that land and did what had been done there, you would have probably been locked up for it. It's the way it was done. It seems amazing as that can be got away with in one way, and yet other people who do very small things, they're in trouble straight away.
The road systems that come in, we've never successfully managed to restore the damaged vegetation alongside the road system. So the land take has been even bigger than anybody suspected. We have lots and lots of collateral damage. The diggers come in and other drains get dug, and the infrastructure of the roads, the power lines, all cause additional damage. And we shouldn't be building these wind turbines in areas which have got a lot of peat in, because the peat has locked away lots of carbon dioxide, and driving roads through them, it opens up the peat, it oxidizes away, and we lose carbon dioxide. So you know, it's tokenism perhaps of the worst order.
Cefn Croes is not an isolated development. Wind farms, as they are euphemistically called by their developers, are sprouting up all over the Welsh uplands. And the turbines are getting bigger. The proposals are getting more ambitious. The applications to build them more numerous. The consequences to the landscape and the quality of life are becoming more destructive. Not just up here in the mountains, but below them as well. Do people who will live in their shadow want to see them?
Wel, dim yn y marn I, no. Dim i'r llygad, fydden ni ddim eisiau gweld nhw ar y topau ffer yn bersonol. Cadwch popeth fel ma fe. Mae eisiau'r llefydd unig bendigedig un, a mae hawl yn ni gael fyw yn y llefydd yma fel maen nhw wedi bod eriod. A gobeithio cadw anw fel I fyd, tro'r ddau ffrind yno, gobeithio.
Ond wi'n ofon bod y ffaith bod y ffermydd gwynt yma yn mynd I gael effaith negyddol ar y twristiaeth sydd gennym ni, yn enwedig nawr bod ni wedi dod at bwynt le dych chi bron y bod ffili sefyll ar unrhyw gopa heb weld o leia tair fferm wynt. Mae'r unigedd o fi'n sôn amdano'n gynharach yn mynd I gael I effeithio'n ddirfawr gan y twf mewn ffermydd gwynt, y twf yn yr hewlydd sy'n mynd i'r ffermydd gwynt. A wi ddim yn gweld y ffermydd gwynt yn ei cyfan yn rhoi unrhyw fath o ateb hir dymor i'r mwyafrif o ffermwyr sy'n byw yn yr ardal, i'r mwyafrif o bobl sydd yn ddibynnol ar y diwydiant amaethyddol sy'n byw yn yr ardal. Dyw'r gweithwyr sy'n gweithio yn y ffermydd gwynt ddim yn bobl lleol oherwydd dyw'r sgiliau ddim I gael yn lleol. Mae'r gweithwyr lleol yn mynd I golli mas oherwydd bydd y tir yn cael ei ddefnyddio mwy ar gyfer y pethau yna a ddim ar gyfer amaethyddiaeth. A be mae fe'n creu yw mae fe'n creu sefyllfa le mae rhai bobl yn gwneud llawer iawn o arian allan y ffermydd gwynt, a mae rhan fwyaf o bobl yn gwneud tipyn bach o arian allan ono fe sydd ddim yn ddigon am gynhaliaeth. Wi'n gweld bod yna rhywbeth llawer mwy i'w gael o yr ochr dwristaidd yn hytrach na'r ochr ynni o beth sydd gennym ni fan hyn yn y mynyddodd.
Anybody who spent any time in amongst them, and I've been involved now in 7, 8 public inquiries, about 15 or more proposals. I've spent a long time in amongst the wind turbines. When I talk to people who say, oh yes, I quite like wind turbines, I haven't found one person yet that has spent any time wandering in amongst them. They're very difficult to cope with as the turbine blades go round and round. You stand there and you even begin to start to dream of fall over. If you can't stay upright as these blades continually just flash across the landscape. Your eye's always drawn to them, the noises they make. They're not great, but it's like having a washing machine strapped to your back the whole time. It's like a vroom, shwoom, vroom, shwoom.
Wel, dyma tro gyntaf erioed I fi fod yn Cefn Croes, ond dwi wedi syfrdani ar maint melynion, maen nhw'n anferth. Mae'r sŵn yn ofnadwy, ac am ardal mor brydferth, maen nhw wedi wneud y lle'n erchill yn y marn i. A dwi I, fel un person, dwi I byth nôl i'r ardal hyn tro. Maen nhw wedi wneud y lle yn ofnadwy. Dwi ddim yn bleser I ddod yma, a dwi flin I ddweud yna, ond maen nhw wedi newid yr holl dirlun yn yr ardal hyn.
There is a myth that the Cambrian Mountains are empty and so are somehow in need of development. They have, of course, got their problems. But in fact, the many different elements of life in the mountains, which give them so much of their unique character, have achieved an enviable, almost miraculous state of balance. The last things that mountains need are aggressive economic and industrial intrusion from outside. Who could deny that the Cambrian Mountains are an area of outstanding natural beauty? Wales is a remarkable country. The Cambrian Mountains make up one of the most remarkable regions within it. They're not just beautiful, they are ingrained in Welsh history and Welsh culture. Let us ensure that the mountains are still there, undesecrated, for future generations.
Well, now you've seen that this really is a stunning area. Wonderful landscapes, fantastic wildlife, and warm and welcoming people. It's an area that I've walked in for 3 decades, but it's under threat, and it's imperative that it's protected. It should at least be an area of outstanding natural beauty, and I hope that I can walk the area for decades to come with my children.